go ahead and get started. We know a lot of you, but for anyone who's new, my name is Michaela Nyberg. I'm the Small Business Services Coordinator at ANCA. I'm also joined by Lauren Richard, who is our Small Business Program Director, and she will be facilitating today's panel. I'm going to hand things over to Lauren. She will introduce our panelists and a little bit about ANCA, and we'll get started. Just let me catch up a little bit here.
Yeah, thanks for being here, everybody. Really appreciate that. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about ANCA in case you don't know. If this is repetitive for you, sorry about that. So ANCA stands for the Adirondack North Country Association. We were established in 1955, a nonprofit, non-governmental economic development org. We are 23 staff based primarily in Saranac Lake, New York, but also across the region. We serve the 14 northernmost counties of New York State, which are these counties right here on this slide, basically from Canada down to Route 90, roughly. And this is our vision, mission, and big idea. We envision a North Country for all. We want to build prosperity across Northern New York, and we want to create and sustain wealth and value in local communities. ANCA's work is funded in many different ways, including federal, state, and local grants, philanthropic dollars, event fees, donations, and memberships to keep working for you, to keep us working for you. Your participation, which I can't say this morning, and support are greatly appreciated. Your participation here today is all part of that, so we really appreciate seeing you here. You can always learn more on our website, which is adirondack.org, under support. Right, so we have lots of different upcoming events and programs, including the continuation of this series, which is our financial empowerment series. We have several more sessions for that. And we also have our ongoing Entrepreneur Roundtable, which is a virtual meetup for different business owner operators across the region to just build community with each other and some mutual support. We also have our upcoming Adirondack Buyer Days wholesale trade show for micro and small maker businesses and retailers, which is happening at the end of March. And we have a couple of prep webinars for that as well happening in February. So all kinds of cool stuff going on, which you can learn about at adirondack.org/events. This is Michaela's and my contact information, which we'll also make sure we put in the follow-up email for this for you. If you ever need other business support services, we're here to help. We'll talk to you anytime. We'll listen to what you need and just work on getting you to the next step based on what you need and where you're at. That's what we really love to do. So yeah, and we can also help you navigate to other resources. If it's not us who can help you, we'll help you find out who that person is or who that organization is and get you there. Thanks. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce our two panelists that we have with us today. The first is Christian Blue. Christian began his career with Edward Jones, serving clients in Plattsburgh, Saranac Lake, and Malone. He believes in a holistic approach to wealth strategies, considering all aspects of his client's financial life before making strategy recommendations. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Michael Rosler. We have Michael Rosler also, who is a registered representative and insurance agent with New York Life. He finds that helping clients understand their options and achieve their goals are what makes his job so rewarding. He believes every client is unique and works with them together to develop a personalized approach that meets today's needs and tomorrow's as well. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
So first, I'll give you each a couple minutes, like say 2 to 3 minutes, to introduce yourselves a little bit more if you want to, if there's anything I missed in your bio, and we'll go from there. So I'll do the opposite. I'll start with you, Mike.
So great to meet everybody. My name is Mike Rossler, here from New York Life. I'm just very happy to participate and help people on their pathway to a successful retirement. You know, one of the things that I really focus on with people is wanting to get to that stage in life where they can say, I'm glad I did, not that I wish I would have. And really it's about, you know, starting with that plan and say, hey, here's what I'd like my retirement to look like, and work backwards and how can we engineer so you can get to that point and create the financial freedom to make the choices you want to make, and not have them made for you. So happy to help in any way along the road as you put those plans together, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, Chris Blue, talked to some of you. Maybe some of you are on our first Zoom, but happy to be back. Yeah, I work for Edward Jones since 2021 now. What I really enjoy is it's the people, right? Like it's investing, it's money, but it's really about the people. So I really like getting to know everyone and finding out because everyone wants to retire, right? Like everyone says, I need to save for my retirement, but what does that look like, right? Like, so it's financial planning, but it's like life planning, right? Because retirement's not pass fail. It's what do you want it to look like, and then what financial tools do we need to use to get you from where you are now to where you want to go. So that's the part I really enjoy, and I'm glad to be here with people today.
Thank you. All right, so we'll dive right into our first question. So we have a few prepared questions for our panelists that they've seen ahead of time, so they've had some time to study if they want to, and then we will also have some time for Q&A from the audience at the end. So just so you know kind of how that's going to work. So most Americans, we know statistically, are behind on retirement savings. What does that actually mean, and how do people successfully work with that reality? Who wants to go first?
I can go first. So yeah, most people feel like they are behind on their retirement savings. And so my question I always kind of ask first is like, what does that mean? Like, what are we behind? Because it's easy to say I'm behind on retirement, but the big question is, what do you want retirement to look like, right? Because it's like I said, it's not pass fail. It's not like you didn't plan enough so you don't retire. It's what do you want that to look like? Because that's going to look different for everybody, right? So, hey, if you want to buy a $1 million, $2 million beach house and retire at 65 and be done, yeah, we might be a little bit behind that goal, right? Like we might not be there yet, but that's not what everybody wants, right? So the question number one is before we say we're behind, it's like, what are we behind? What do we really want retirement to look like? And then what does it actually take to make that happen? Because there's, you kind of see it go by online and all over the place, you need $1 million to retire. You need $2 million to retire. And so people get these numbers in their head of like, oh, this is what it has to be. When in reality, it might be that, or it might not be that. Right. So that's where kind of the planning and the strategy comes in. So before we start saying like, we might be behind, we might not. But what I always encourage people to do is sit down and kind of define exactly what we're going for here. And work with somebody to figure out how we can make that happen. Because once we do those things, we may find we're not as behind as we think we are. We may be, we may not be. But I would say the first thing, the question is how do people successfully work with that reality? I'd say the first thing we need to do is kind of define that reality a little bit so we can get a good pulse on if we're actually behind, by how much, and what we need to do to bring you up to speed.
Okay, thank you. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I would echo what Christian was saying, particularly about that sort of feeling of being behind. I think it's one of those things like how much time have you actually devoted to sitting down and some of it is actual work, right? That feeling of being behind is because usually we haven't devoted the time that we know we need to, but in today's world, it's like where do you find the time and like how do you prioritize it? It's like if you leave your house after a windstorm, you're like, wow, look at all those shingles that are on the lawn. I guess I should think about that roof. But the next day it's nice and you're like you go about your business and you don't think about it. So the next time there's a windstorm. However, there will come a point where you're like, wait a second, approaching retirement like tomorrow, and I really need to have thought about that. So that, when I talk about, hey, be able to say I'm glad I did and not I wish I would have, it's really about, hey, how do you prioritize something that you know is important in the context of all the other things we have going on in our lives with, taking our kids here, there, you're working and you're trying to enjoy your life as well, but it's really trying to take a little bit of that time and saying, all right, when can I actually sit down and make this a priority? And that could be the value of having someone help you at least say, hey, let me put some questions in front of you so you actually think about it. But I think that sense of being behind is just because it's hard to devote the necessary time to it.
Great, thank you. I think you kind of both answered the next question a little bit. So which was, what would you want people to know if they felt like they're behind? But I feel like you both said kind of like what people need to know, which is, let's think first about where you're trying to go and then make a plan to kind of work toward that goal. So the next question is, how is retirement planning different for someone who is self-employed or runs a very small business versus someone who might be working for someone else? Are there some differences there that you think are worth talking about? Mike, you want to go first this time?
Well, I mean, obviously, as a business owner, we mentioned about this time piece of it, but that's an even more, pressing issue because you're so focused on your business all the time. You've got, how do you grow the business? How do you get employees in? And it's easy to forget about yourself in that environment and not think about like all the extra steps that go into how are you going to plan around your business? What are your expectations for it? How is it financed? Do you have partners? Is there a thought process about how the business would be dispositioned if something happened to one of the partners or to yourself? What if you can't show up to the business? Those are all the things that are like, listen, I'm just trying to run my business day by day, but how do I then, set aside the time to think about some of these bigger questions that really are specific to the small business owner? It could be easy to forget about retirement savings in that environment and trying to put aside like, well, wait, I got to make payroll. How do I put this aside for, how do I put my retirement, aside for that? But it's really important, particularly in that situation where there's so much pressure on your time on an everyday basis to try and carve out a little bit to say, okay, how do I think about sort of today, tomorrow, and down the road and how this business is going to look and how does my life and my retirement plan fit into and around it, and how is it impacted by this business? There's just a few specific things, that you've got to try and factor into that thought process besides just an individual, because of the way that, the businesses, most people are small business owners. They're not, big corporations. There's like the business is them. And that's a real specific challenge to think about how do you utilize that for retirement? You'd like to think like, well, my business is my retirement. Yes, but if you are the business, well, does that mean you're selling it? Are you passing it on to a child? Is someone, is a partner going to take it over? So some really specific questions for the small business owner to think about in that environment. That is beyond just, hey, I should go to work every day and I don't have to I don't have some of those bigger issues that I have to deal with.
Great, thank you. And just FYI, we do have a later session in this series that's all about succession planning for your business. So if you want to dig into that a little bit more, we're going to be doing that. Chris, how about you?
That's a great topic. Like everybody, if you're on this call, be on that call because it's like hugely important and it doesn't always get the credit it's due. So like jump on that call. That's going to be awesome. When it comes to differences for the small business owner, when it comes to retirement planning, yeah, there's a lot. First and foremost, no one's going to do it for you, right? Like, so if a lot of times, if you're working for a company, it's got a 401k. It's pretty easy. You go in, you sign your account opening paperwork, you set up your 401k, and the money just starts going out, right? Like it handles itself. It's there for you. Really, all you got to do is sign up. if you're running the show, if it's your business, that might not be there. Like there might not be a framework that you can just sign on the line and say, let's start saving for retirement. So that's one challenge. It's like there's a lot of times there's nobody there to do it for you. It falls on you, along with everything else, right? That falls on you, like Mike was saying. Uh, Another difference is taxes. Retirement planning and taxes kind of go hand in hand, both in your contributions now and the money that you save now, and once you start taking a retirement income, what taxes look like then. So your tax situation can and will be much different as a business owner. Your income, variable, right? It's like eating steak or eating, cardboard sometimes, right? Like there's with other jobs. Again, if you're working at an established company, you got the 401k, you got the salary, you know what you're going to make. You know what you're going to make this month and next month and next month. If you own a business, you have months that are awesome, where it's gangbusters, and you have times that are really tough, right? So it can be hard to set something up on autopilot as far as like when it comes to saving money for the future. You don't know what the future looks like in the near term. So it's a lot harder to save for the long term. So that's another problem. And then lastly is the succession planning and, business. If you're going to liquidate it, if you're going to pass it on, that's a huge topic. And obviously you're going to get into that later. So won't go really deep into it now, but at some point, it's a lot of times the goal to turn that business into an income stream. Sometimes you are the business, sometimes there's more assets, but that's a huge piece of the puzzle. How are we going to take this business that you've worked, that you've built, that you've grown for the past however many years, and how are we going to take that business and turn it into an income stream that can help provide for your retirement? Different for everybody, but a huge topic. So those would be the four ways that kind of off the top of my head, small business owners got much different retirement planning scenario than a lot of other people, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. So kind of building off of that, is there a minimum income or profit level where retirement savings starts to make sense, or can people start smaller than they think? Like, I feel like that can tie back into the kind of variable income thing. If you can put a minimum every month in, even if it's $10, like starting somewhere, does that make sense? Or is it like, don't even bother at some point? What's the threshold? Chris, do you want to start first for this one?
Yeah. So, I mean, yes and yes, right? You can and you should start smaller than you think. People have big numbers running around in their head. If I have to be contributing X amount, it's like you don't. Just start with what you can do. Start small. At the same time, I get it, right? Like you do have immediate expenses. There are bills that need to be paid right now, right? And I get that. But as soon as we are covering the right now, start saving for retirement, start investing for retirement. It can be small amounts. There's not a minimum amount. The important thing is that you start, right? Because again, retirement is it's not pass fail. It's how much can we save, right? It's a sliding scale. And the reason we save now is so we can spend later. So wherever that scale starts as far as saving and investing, like start now, as long as our day-to-day is covered, start putting money away, because the more we invest now, the more we can spend later.
Great, thank you. Mike, how about you? Is there a threshold where income wise where this makes sense or doesn't make sense?
Well, listen, each person's situation is different, but we probably all could say, well, do I need to have the venti Starbucks today, or can I go with the grande? And I think that's a $12 difference nowadays. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems crazy. But there's always somewhere where you could make a trade-off when you say, what are my priorities? and one of the ways to think about it is like, listen, you're not going to go from today to tomorrow and have $1 million in your retirement account, right? Unless, hey, you won the lottery. I saw someone from Malone, they bought the ticket for $2 million. Hooray. Like if we could all do that, amazing. But that seems less likely than, hey, today I'm going to go out and go to work and see what I can make. So maybe it's more of like, how do you stage along the way for what it is you're trying to accomplish? If you think about sort of your financial house, your financial picture, and start with that sort of foundation, more around like, hey, am I protected first, right? Like if something like that's the easiest way to leverage what you're doing is say like, hey, have I protected myself and my family? If I'm a small business owner, if I'm the person that I have to go out every day and I am the business, what happens if I can't go out for the business? Or if I'm, God forbid, I'm not here, have I protected myself, my family, my business in that situation? And then start to think about, okay, that's okay. We've built that foundation. Now let's start building on that accumulation piece. A sort of nice, hey, here's the beautiful view of the Adirondacks from my first floor. Let's look across here and start making that accumulation process. And that can start very, very small. But the one of the great things is the power of time and compounding when you take small things and let them grow for a long time. It's like, and it's hard where you're like, listen, I'm trying to do this. And, or maybe you started over late in life. You go, how do I do that? Like, regardless, getting started is the most important step versus not doing anything, because that doesn't change anything. But just really what you can start to build today and let that grow. And that will give you more confidence, like, hey, I'm on the right pathway. I know I can see something happening. My money is starting to work for me. So it's really not a question of like, hey, I need X to get started. You just need to get started and then start to think about, okay, what could this possibly be? What can I do? And don't skimp on making sure that you are rewarding yourself and you're like, there's something that's coming out of this on the other side. And it's easy to not put that aside, but you got to pay yourself along the way somewhere in order for it to make sense. Maybe that's an evaluation like, hey, where am I in this business process? Where am I, along the way here? How is it making sense? But really, think about those different levels and how do you, start in the process.
Thank you. And I think getting started while being the most important is also arguably the most difficult and terrifying part of the whole entire thing too. So it's tricky. All right. So our next question is, and again, we're going to get into this more in a different session, but just if we can touch on it a little bit more here today. What role might selling or transitioning ownership of a business play in retirement for someone who is/was a business owner? Mike, do you want to start with this one?
Well, I think that's the reason most people go into business is one, they might have a passion for something, but also they realize that there's some, financial success that they're hoping to get out of it. And a lot of people are like, what's your retirement? Like, well, it's my business. Like, well, what does that mean? Like, well, I'm going to sell it. Like, all right, but if you're, what is your business? What is it that you do? Is it purely a skill that you have, or is it something that's transferable? Is it something that you're passing on? Is it something you're going to bring in? How would you sell it if that, Christian mentioned there'll be other, seminars on this, but, that process is something that you've got to kind of start from day one because you need to have the right documents in place. You have the right structure in place, like to make sure that when you are going to get to that point to pass it on, that you have the flexibility and ability to do it. Is there a buy-sell agreement? Is that been funded? What are the tax implications of different business structures? There's a whole host of questions that need to be thought about in that scenario.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot. And again, one of those things where you might not have all the answers, but there's people who can help and help you figure it out. Chris, how about you? What role might selling or transitioning business play in retirement?
Yeah, so a huge role, right? Like the role. And it depends on the business, kind of like Mike's done a great job kind of bringing up like of the business, how much of it is you, how much of it can be passed on, right? But a lot of times I mean, up to 80% of your net worth as the business owner could be in the business. right? That's like 80% of what you got. And it's not always that, but they've done a bunch of different studies trying to like figure out what that number is, and that's what they came up with. So we're looking at a big piece of the puzzle here, right? So the role is going to be big. So it's important that you go in with a defined plan to make it happen. Uh, so the first thing we're going to need to know is what's the business worth, right? Like that's kind of the first thing we got to do. Because if we're going to plan on a retirement and we're going to plan on selling the business, whatever that looks like, to fund that retirement, we got to get an idea of what that number might be. So we got to get you a number. Once you have a number of what your business could be worth, then the next thing is how can we protect that number, right? Because tomorrow is not guaranteed. Who knows what comes next, right? So there are really 5 things that can really threaten your business when it comes to business valuation, especially for business transition. The 5 Ds, so to speak. So there's death, right? These are things that could go wrong. There's death, there's disability, divorce, distress, and disagreement. Those are like the 5 things that can really unravel the business and unravel the plans to transition out of that business. So how are we going to protect from those 5 things? And then once we have that, the question is, okay, now like practically, what is this business transition going to look like? Is the business just going to be sold? Is someone going to take over? What does that look like? How can we structure the payouts so that you have enough money in retirement, et cetera, et cetera? So it's a huge topic that you could really rabbit hole down, which is why it's awesome that you're having a call dedicated to that. But to break it down, like to oversimplify it, what's the value of the business? How can we protect that value? And then what are the best avenues to use to turn that value into an actual income stream for your retirement?
Awesome. Thank you. And another FYI, ANCA runs the Center for Businesses in Transition, which is a partnership of orgs all across the region who are teed up to help with this very thing, to help value the business, to help kind of through all of those different steps. There's a lot there. And again, like nobody should have to go it alone because it is a lot. And you've been running your business the whole time. That's been enough. You probably haven't maybe been doing all this other stuff to prepare to sell it at the same time. So there's people who can help. And if you're outside of our service area, we probably can connect you with somebody inside of your area. So the next question is, many small business owners worry about locking money away, like tying money up. What options allow flexibility in life or the business if things change in terms of retirement savings? Mike, do you want to go first for this one?
Sure, there's really a few different options that a business owner could consider, whether it's for themselves or for the employees or at the same time. And some provide more flexibility, whether that's like a simple IRA, a SEP IRA, where you can sort of decide how much you're putting in for yourself, for your employees on an annual basis, versus getting more complicated and more like definitive, like a 401k. There's a lot of rules and regulations about that. And that's not something where you can say like, hey, this year I'm putting in $100 and next year I'm putting in 500 and next year it's zero. You don't have it's a lot more restricted than that, but there are several options that give the business owner the ability to include themselves, which is nice, and also be able to offer it to their employees. Obviously be able to incentivize your employees and, have them along the way, with your success and motivate them that way can be a powerful tool from a benefits perspective. But there's other ways, from that perspective, from a benefit standpoint to factor in for yourself and for employees. But from a retirement standpoint, there's a number of different ways that we could talk about and look into depending on the situation and how much was being generated from a profit standpoint by the business. There's also some tax deductions that could make sense. We work with a lot of people, CPAs, particularly for business owners, to get that tax advice as well. That's important to understand. What is your specific tax situation, the structure of your business, it really is, it's hard to say like, hey, generically it's this, but what we can assure you is that there are a number of options depending on where you're at, where your business at, sort of in its life and its success level, what your tax situation might be. But there are a lot of different options within the tax code that allow a small business owner to take advantage for themselves and also for their employees if that's something that they wanted to pursue.
Great, thank you. Sounds like maybe talk to a financial advisor
I don't
to
know,
get some
maybe.
more tailored advice.
Yeah.
Chris, how about you? Do you have something to talk about for this?
Yeah, so the concern makes a lot of sense, right? In the ebb and flow of business, this month was awesome, this quarter was awesome, next quarter maybe not. So it makes total sense that if we're talking about saving some money, putting some money away, uh, you might some of that money anyway, you might want to be able to get it back if you need it, right, for that quarter when things are slow. And that is an option you have. And a lot of it comes down, and there's so much like nitty gritty that goes into this. The answer is talk to a financial advisor, right? And we'll give you like go into all the specific details of how all this works and your exact options. But in general, if money is being contributed into a dedicated retirement account, that's where you get into those situations where the money goes into the account and it's really not supposed to be taken back out. Like you can do it, maybe you can do it. You're definitely going to pay extra taxes, but the money is designed to go in there and stay in there like till you retire. But for business owners, that you might want to take some money and put it into an account that is not a designated retirement account. Because if it's not a designated retirement account, money can go in and it can grow just like a 401k. But if money gets tight, money can come right back out of that account and it's back in the bank in like 2 days. So you're not putting money up on a shelf where you can't touch it for the next 20 years. You're putting it in an account that if things go well and we don't need to take the money, fantastic. It's going to grow just like a 401k or like an IRA. But if we get into some kind of financial tight spot, something happens we don't see coming, we can actually get that money back out and get it back to you. So there's a lot of like I said, a little detail that goes into that conversation, but you do have options, and a lot of it just hinges on the exact account type that money is going into. So just talk to an advisor, explore your options, because chances are you can find something that can really help you out from a flexibility standpoint.
Great, thank you. We have like one or two more questions that I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience for Q&A. So everybody start getting your questions ready. I want to ask you, what are the biggest myths you hear about retirement that stop people from getting started?
You need $1 million to retire. Or
Yeah.
$2 million, or insert whatever you've seen online. Like the amount, you open your browser and there's like the 12 dozen articles that go by tailored to you just to make you upset. Like I'm sure it's because I work in finance, but like half of mine are, can I retire on $1 million? Right. So there's just
I see those too. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's not just me. Take responsibility. Take full responsibility for my algorithm. But point is, there's a lot of myths about what you need to retire. And so like you need a dollar amount. None of that is true. It all depends on you. Don't be fooled into saying based on one article online, this is that you need $1 million or $2 million or whatever. It's about you, right? It's about what you want. So that's kind of a silly one, but like that is the most prevalent retirement myth that I see.
Great, thank you. Mike, how about you?
I think the biggest thing that keeps people from getting started is really a fear of like acknowledging that, hey, I haven't gotten started. Like, it's there in the back of your mind. You're like, well, I forgot about it for today, but you walk out the door the next day and there it is. And you haven't, it's there and you're like, oh, but I don't have $1 million, or I don't have enough money for an advisor. Wow, no one will help me. But that's just like a projection of that fear, like knowing there's something that you needed to do but you haven't done, and that's where you mentioned like, listen, just get started. started, you will feel so much better just by starting, by taking the time to think about it and, go to somebody. Like, I say my job is to ask hard questions to like prod people like, hey, we've got, you need to think about it, but let's just, break through that wall. Let's have that initial discussion. You will feel better because at least you'll know where you are because the unknown is so great. And it's that fear of that unknown because you're like, I don't know what it's going to look like. Like having information is more powerful than not. Listen, I deal with a lot of people that work in sort of government related uh, jobs up here, whether it's in law enforcement, corrections, hospital, teacher, and people they're like, oh, I've got it, I'm all set. And like, well, hey, by the way, did you know when you get to retirement, you're going to be in a higher tax bracket? And they're like, what? Like, yeah, all that money you've been putting away, you think you're gonna be like, so that was an unknown related to that. So knowledge is power, and just the willingness to just say, hey, let's have a conversation, let's ask the questions. That gives you the power to overcome that fear. And all those other things, those ads that tell you whether it's a million, a billion, it doesn't matter because you are you. You just have to be able to sit down and be willing to start the conversation.
Great, thank you. And I just want to reiterate something that came up in one of our previous sessions about financial advisors and what if you can't afford one? And the answer was kind of like, do you know you can't afford one? Because it might not be as expensive as you think it is, and you can get a quote from a couple different ones and then make a decision whether or not you can afford it. So if you need help with your finances beyond kind of this sort of generic, for a crowd type advice, like maybe check it out, see if it's actually something you can't afford, or maybe it'll surprise you and be something that you can do to get some more tailored help for your own finances. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to pass it over to the audience. We always have to ask a question like this in these, right? What's one small actionable item that people can do in the next, say, week or two or month or so, in the next short period of time, no matter where they're at right now with their retirement? What's like one thing they could do that's like very bite-sized?
I'm bad at
Okay,
following
go for it.
directions, so I'm going to give you two, but they're both easy, right? So, and one might apply to you, one might not, which is why I say two. So if you have old retirement accounts lying around, because a lot of people worked somewhere 10 years ago and they had a 401k, but I don't really remember what happened to it, and I think it's still out there somewhere. That means you have money that is yours, that is still, as we say, out there somewhere, right? So one action item I would say is if you have old 401ks, IRAs, these just retirement accounts with past employers, bring that money home, right? It's a little bit of process. We can help you with it, but consolidate your old retirement accounts. Disclaimer, if it makes sense, make sure you understand all the benefits that go along so you're not missing out on any, but take a look, right? Because a lot of people have these accounts floating around. And a lot of times there's good reasons to consolidate those. Maybe not, right? It depends on a lot of specifics, but at least look at it. If you're at the point where, okay, I don't have any old retirement accounts kicking around that might need to come home, set up an account with regular automatic contributions going into it. Even if you don't know exactly like what type of account, retirement account, non-retirement account, like give a call, I can help you. I'm sure Mike can help you, but just get any account set up that you can make regular automatic contributions into. And everything else can be refined from there, right? Because we can tweak the account type into something that's like perfect, but like at the very least, just start making regular automatic retirement contributions. Because then, even if you don't think about this for the next 30 years, you will have something. So, yeah, sorry. I know that's two, but that's
Two is a
what I
bonus. That's
yeah. One, it's not
don't
two.
apologize.
One is just a bonus. Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you. There's something really beautiful about just like sitting back and then not looking at your account for however long and then looking again and saying, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah. And the
there's
only
money in there."
literally,
It's
and the
amazing.
only difference is you took the time to set it up.
Hmm.
Like you didn't have to do any extra work. The money came out automatically. You just took a couple hours out of your time just to set something up that was then gonna run itself. So pretty sweet.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. Mike, I hope that Chris didn't take your ideas. If you have
Yeah,
another one
All
to
out of
add,
I
ideas.
didn't
go
think
for
about
it.
that. Selfish.
So the one thing that I would think about, and it's one of the things that spend a lot of time early on when I work with clients, is know your numbers. Like you can't say what do you need in retirement until you say, well, what do I have today and what am I spending money on today? So just that basic budgeting of here's what's coming in and here's what's going out. That's the basis of all those projections that will tell you like, hey, what do I need retirement is based on, well, what am I spending money on? Like that's the most like just sit down, go through your bank account and just put all those things down. You like that could be a real eye opener, but know your numbers because that's what will tell us what you possibly will need in retirement. And you've got to start with that. And that's sort of the building block. And that's like, that's the one of the biggest pieces of homework I give clients is like, here's your budget sheet. Here's work on this. Let's come back and let's really talk about this. But that's the one thing you can do in not a lot of time for the next week or two to work on.
That's great. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to invite both of our panelists to pop their contact information in the chat if you want to, if anybody wants to follow up with you. And like I said, we'll also be putting it in the follow-up email for this event. But if you want to reach out, right away, then the follow-up email will take a minute to get together for you. So we'll do that as well. And then I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. And these can come if you want to type them in the chat or if you prefer to come off mute and chat out a question, we can do that too. Thank you both for being here and sharing your expertise with us today. And thanks to all of our attendees as well. We'll send out a recording minus the Q&A session. And we will also send you information about our next sessions that we have coming up along with that. So stay tuned in your email for that. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Take care.